Hey everybody, welcome to Mark Bell's Power Project podcast, hosted by Mark Bell, co-hosted by Nsima, Inyang, and myself, Andrew Zaragoza. Today's episode is recorded on July 31st, and it is with Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson is an NFL lineman for the Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl winning Philadelphia Eagles, and so naturally a pro athlete. We're going to be, a bunch of little fangirls and ask him all kinds of silly questions about playing in the NFL. So we got a lot of background and insight information on what it takes to play in the NFL. We asked him a bunch of questions about training, rest, recovery, maybe some certain training methods that linemen are overlooking when trying to make it to the league. And we also talked about how Lane actually was popped for PEDs twice in his NFL career, what that did to him as far as his career, contract-wise, popularity, just the ins and outs of what happens to an NFL player when something like that happens. Also, really interesting for this episode, he and his coach contracted the coronavirus. He was tested once, and then he was tested again to confirm it. So we got, some information about, the symptoms that he's been feeling, what's been going on, quarantine for him and his coach. So again, just really, really interesting stuff. And again, sorry, I keep using that word interesting, but I'm going to put a link down in the podcast show notes and the YouTube and Facebook descriptions, a link to a post that Mark made a couple weeks back with Lane in it. When I say this, you're going to not really understand it. You have to watch this video. But Lane looks like The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin possibly had a baby, or maybe Lane was made in a lab, the way that Nsima was breaking down by getting the blood of both athletes or both superstars, because he somehow looks like both at the same time. I really think you guys are going to dig this episode. If you do, please reach out to us on all social media platforms. All links will be down in the descriptions below. But that's it for me. So, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy this episode with Super Bowl winning champion Lane Johnson.
It's a good week.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's going down all the way on in the future, right? Because you're 3 hours into the future. What's it like?
You guys got some rain coming your way, I think.
Damn.
It's wet. The future is very wet. Very moist.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm out here in New Jersey. Jersey Shore. I can go anywhere in the world, and this is where I end up.
What is it about New Jersey, though? Like, you could go anywhere, but you guys went there.
Yeah, I don't know. I got a weird family, turns out. That's where my family meets up every year. They've been doing it for the last 8 or 10 years or so. And so here we be.
Nice.
How many people would you say is like out there? 20, 30? 40?
I think last year we had about 45 or so. And this year it's maybe just a little bit less, but still most showed up. Yeah, it's all it's all still very it's not really friends or anything even. Yeah, it's just we just got a big family, so it's a lot of cousins and nieces and nephews and stuff all like Bells? That. Yeah, Bells. Some have different last names just because there's some girls in the family, mainly dudes, but
okay.
Yeah, some girls in the family, but yeah, it's great. Being around families, just different, and, talking to everybody about, the coronavirus and different things going on. I have a lot of family that's they're teachers, and so they, just like everybody else, just want to see things at some point, get back to normal and in some sort of safe way so they can kind of just get back to work and do what they love doing, teaching. And a bunch of my family members are coaches as well, basketball. Basketball mainly. But it's been great to be out here with my kids. My kids get a lot out of it, and it's cool to see them interact with the other kids that are out here, and they get to kind of visit with their cousins on the other side of the United States.
Wow.
How was that gigantic slice of pizza?
Oh, that slice of pizza was pretty damn good. That's a place out here. And whenever you order pizza, they always like warn you, because people are always like, yeah, I'll get like 2-3 slices. They're like, no, you don't understand, the pizza's really big. And everyone's always like, oh yeah, but I still, I want like 3 or 4 or whatever. And then by the time you get it, you're like, oh, okay, it's the size of a table pretty much. Yeah. Pizza's good out here on the East Coast.
No, man. That reminds me. This past weekend, we went to San Francisco for the day, right? Went to this pizza spot. So we ordered this pizza. We didn't know, like, you can't get it by the slice. Ended up being like this big old 20-inch pizza, right? We're eating it. And then this poor guy, he comes up. He's like, hey, can I get a slice? I was like, oh, yeah, sure. Here, give him and I give him a slice, right? And he's like, well, can I get another one? I'm like, yeah, here, take this one. But he's like, oh, can you get that one with more pepperoni? I was like, what? Oh, wow. I give you one slice, bro, and now you're trying to be picky about which slice you get on my damn pizza.
That's terrible, because you're trying to be like, it puts you in the weirdest situation, because you're like, yeah, it's not going to hurt me to, yeah, sure, dude, be a good guy. You can have one. And then now you have to be like, well, no, you can't have, really? You're not going to let me have the one with the extra pepperoni?
he was out here with his hands. He was all reaching for it. And my girl's looking at me like, what you doing? Like, don't let him touch our pizza. Oh, no. So I gave it to him. I was like, oh yeah, here. But it was hella funny. He got so bored after the first slice.
That's funny. Yeah, we had pizza over the weekend. So we moved into the new spot. And it's a really awesome problem to have, but it is a problem because we're right next to a place called Pizza Bell. And I don't know how many of those exist in the world, but dude, it is so good. And so that's kind of how we we baited people to come help us move. We're like, hey dude, help us move and we're all going to have Pizza Bell. It was worth it, but man, it's dangerously close, because I can walk there now. It's freaking awesome.
Pizza's just so easy, right? Like it's always, there's different types of pizza, but it's almost always good. And it's just I don't know, it's just like the funnest thing in the world to eat, I think. Like I don't think we've had anybody on the show that's hated pizza. Like whenever we ask people favorite food, they're almost always like, mention a couple things, and it usually ends with pizza.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
Italians, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure today's guest has put down plenty of pizzas in his day.
Yeah, we got a big one on the show today. We got Lane Johnson. Yeah, we got Lane Johnson on the show from the Philadelphia Eagles. Him and his coach, his trainer, both came down with coronavirus. Interestingly enough, how all this stuff always loops back around. Gabe, who is Lane's coach, was Jesse Burdick's first intern that he had. So it's everybody's all like always like intertwined with each other. And then this guy also gets diet information and some training advice from our buddy the Rhino as well. So yeah, I can't wait to talk to him. I'm excited. He also has been banned multiple times for performance enhancing drugs, and he's been vocal about it. He's talked about it in the past, and he even says that he's one of the top linemen in the league, and he doesn't believe, I don't know if he still feels the same way, but I've heard him say before that he doesn't believe that he deserves Hall of Fame mentioning ever due to his involvement with banned substances. So yeah, really great guest to have on the show today. And as you guys saw, when he did that little promo for us with the slingshot over his shoulder, he looked like a combination of it looked like a video game version of The Rock and Stone Cold mixed together.
He did. You
know how people are doing that little thing where they bounce back and forth like they're a video game thing? He looked a little bit like that.
It hurts the head when you look at that video. I'll put the link to your Instagram showing that video in the description, but because you look at him like, oh, he looks like The Rock, and then he does the beard like Stone Cold. And when I was explaining it to Josh, I'm just like, dude, you look at him and it just, you can't wrap your head around it because he looks exactly like both at the same time. It doesn't make any sense. It's so weird.
He hit us hard with the people's eyebrow too.
Yeah.
I think he was made in a lab, guys. Like, I'm pretty convinced at this point that
Talent.
like somehow during the 90s in WWE, someone went in there, took some rock blood, took some Stone Cold blood, fused it together, and grew Lane Johnson. I'm pretty sure that's the case. And he's just, that's why, like, you see that Stone Cold was on his podcast. Y'all think that's just something that happened? Nah, like they figured some shit out.
There's some shit going on.
Mm-hmm. I'm convinced. I'm totally convinced about that.
I believe that Lane Johnson is he's paid heavily for his duties with the Eagles, I think to the tune of like $60 million or something like that. So I'd like to hear what he has to say about Patrick Mahomes' deal, because Patrick Mahomes got $503 million.
That what?
yeah, $503 million.
For how many years?
I forget. It's pretty long. It's like a 10 or 12 year, but still.
Okay. Oh, wow, though. Still.
Yeah. But man, that
$500 million, bro.
That sets the bar so damn high. So just any quarterback that, has a good game against the Chiefs now.
Half a billion dollars, right?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Wow.
All you have to do, Nsima, is just win the Super Bowl and be young.
It's a 10-year deal, $50 million a year. Is that so far? Is that like the biggest contract in sports history at this point?
It's definitely the biggest for football that I've ever heard of.
I know even for soccer, there have been some big contracts, but not like one that's been that big. There have been like $100 million multiple year contracts, but not a 503. Like nothing like that.
I want to say like Shaq and some of those guys were some of the first guys to come through with $100 million, and now it's a lot more common. But yeah, $503 million. Looks like you should have picked football over jiu-jitsu, buddy.
Or
hey, man,
jiu-jitsu, you win like $500 for a match, maybe.
Cool 500.
Baseball is definitely the one to go for, though. Like I remember A-Rod was like he was the first one I remember to make a $200 million contract, and I think that was with, I could be way off, but was it the Rangers? And then he got traded or something happened and he ended up in New York with literally everybody on the Yankees. And those guys just had endless money. I mean, I know they play a ton of games, but if you're an MLB pitcher, you pitch like once a week and you make hundreds of millions of dollars. That's a pretty good gig there.
Yeah, it's amazing the amount of money you can make in some of these sports. Jake and I were talking about it because, I was kind of mentioning who we have on the show today and mentioning some of the money that goes into it and stuff. And I said, you think about it, it seemed like it'd be pretty important, to be a person that landed on the moon. And I was like, but like, what does an astronaut make? And he's like, I think an astronaut, he's like, if they're lucky, they make like 200,000 or 300,000. I was like, yeah, in comparison, like it doesn't, it's interesting where we place our value, but we place a lot of value on entertainment. We want to be entertained, going to the moon, I guess, is like, not that it's not entertaining, but it's just not the same. It's not, we can't get involved with it the way that we can with a game. And I think a game or acting or movies or any of that kind of stuff is a good escape from your day to day, right?
Yeah.
It gets you involved in something different.
Yeah. And that's so like we were talking about it on at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram and our other social media platforms. But we just asked like, hey, what do you guys think of the NBA restart? Like it just happened last night. LeBron James went nuts. Freaking epic game. Lakers and Clippers. Lakers won. And somebody, our buddy Russ had said like, oh, they're just a bunch of overpaid, crybabies.
Oh.
And, my thought is like, well, okay, yeah, they do get coddled and they get treated a certain way, but they are their absolute best at what they do. Mm-hmm. Like there's only 30 teams and each team can only hold 12 to 15 players. So if you're one of the best of the best of the best in the world, yeah, you kind of, I don't want to say you deserve it, but it makes some sense when you're, what you were just saying, Mark, how we give so much money and time to entertainment. If you're there to be the absolute best, yeah, you're going to get paid for it.
I think they get paid pretty fairly in comparison to, what they generate. They generate enormous amounts of money, and that's always kind of like in question. Like, I guess it'd be hard to like figure out, percentage wise of like what the owner makes and but like everyone's making money off of it. The state makes money off it. I mean, the stadium has to pay state taxes, and then every time you go and buy a beer at the game, you're paying a tax. You buy any food or any of that stuff. So it's a positive thing, I think, for everybody involved. I think I don't really know if I think sometimes they might be overpaid. Like some guys are like maybe overrated a little bit or whatever, but that's their job. That's their job to try to figure out how can they get paid the most, the fastest, the earliest, with the least amount of injuries. And that's what their agents are paid to help them navigate as well.
Yeah, and I don't know, like I do know some people who are like, oh, you pay these sports athletes this much, but then I've heard like doctors are only paid this much. But I mean, you got to like, it's where the attention is. Entertainment's a big deal. People being entertained, and like it's just it brings people legitimate, at least a feeling of escape and happiness. And if these players are able to do that, they're getting paid for it.
Yeah, we really need that right now too. Like, what's up?
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, basketball to me nowadays isn't what it used to be, but when it was literally everything, like I would be going nuts if I didn't have this previous season, but then now the restart. And the crazy thing is how it's all going to go down. So like there's like an 8-game season play-in type of thing to see who can get into the playoffs. And if you're like, so if you're in the top 8 standings, positions, whatever you want to call it, but you are like 1 or 2 games out of that, you can actually play the team that's in 8th place to try to play into the playoffs again. It's dude, it's like a kumite for basketball. Like they are going at it pretty bad. Yeah. And then, so the other crazy thing for basketball fans, like it's supposed to end like October somethingth. And then the draft is 2 days later. And then the season starts that month again for next year. So we're like for basketball fans, we're talking about basketball from now till all the way to next summer, basically. Wow. So this is going to give people a lot of like, just like, we were talking about entertainment, but it's going to keep people occupied, keep people busy, keep people not going crazy. At least now there's something on TV that they can tune in and watch and talk about with their buddies and stuff, whether via text or Zoom calls and stuff like this. It's something else to do when there's not a lot of shit going on right now.
Right. I think talent just always gets paid a lot of money too. And because it's like, it's tough, right? I mean, somebody writes a play or writes a script for a movie, and I'm sure they get paid well, for what they wrote, but the actor is probably going to get paid the most. It's a tough thing to go out there and perform in front of people, and then these guys, pro football players, basketball, baseball, these other sports, they got a physical demand is kind of the central part of it. So you need to be gifted in the first place. And maybe that's what people are frustrated about, is the fact that maybe they weren't gifted, some of these qualities, right? But whatever they might be, because there's a wide range, you don't have to just be tall to be a pro player, but it helps. If you look at the big 3 sports, it helps if you're just long and tall and got long arms and long legs. It's helpful, but there's a lot of guys who don't have that. They have other intangibles, but I think people are frustrated. They don't have that. But then beyond that, I think where people are really missing what they're missing out on when they say stuff like that about these athletes being overpaid is they're missing out on the fact that, these guys are also using their brains and using their minds. You can't be out there on the field without having, maybe they don't have like an extreme crazy understanding of the game, but they know how to play the game. And that's like an attribute in and of itself. And so there's a lot going on when you're on a professional field, and I can only imagine. I've only, from my standpoint, football wise, I've been around Steve Smith and Chad Ochocinco, and then in wrestling, being around some of those talents, being around like a Brock Lesnar and a Bobby Lashley and these athletes that went to another level, it's just so clear. It's so clear that you're nothing like them. They truly are special. They have something different than you. And I think that's okay to be in recognition of that. Some people are just freaks. Some people have attributes that are better. And not only they have attributes that are better, maybe they pursued them better, or maybe they started pursuing them earlier. But it doesn't mean you have to feel like shit about yourself. It just means that that's the way the ball bounces sometimes. That's the way things go.
Did you ever lift with Bobby Lashley?
Yeah, I have lifted with Bobby Lashley before. He's very strong. I remember he benched like 475, and he just, he never really tried to like power lift. You know what I mean? Like he's messed around with it a little bit here and there, but he's insanely strong.
Physique wise, that guy is insane.
Yeah, he also, you can keep in mind he was a really, really high level wrestler. And so by the time I met him, he was already all banged up. Like he could still move around really well and still super athletic. But his joints and stuff already hurt. So, I mean, imagine taking a guy like that at, 18 years old and saying, hey, you're doing bodybuilding or you're going to be a power lifter. I mean, he would just be just with a little bit of training. I mean, he was a freak. When I first met him, he was really, really lean. He's actually one of the leaner people I've ever seen that didn't care about it, didn't give it. He wasn't trying to be lean. He just was completely shredded. I mean, he had in wrestling, when we would go through our matches and stuff, midway through you get pretty sweaty, almost like a bodybuilding show, like when you're posing. And he would just be so dry. He had striations through his stomach, striations all through his back. You were just like, what in the world am I looking at? That was right when he came out. He was like fresh off of collegiate wrestling, and he was like 30 pounds lighter. He was a lot lighter at that point. He didn't have the recovery, and he was in a certain weight class. So yeah, he was just completely shredded. And I mean, I've run into other athletes like that too. There's a lot of them in the WWE. I think those guys don't get credit. Some of those guys are pretty well paid, but again, they're entertainers. But they're like sportsmen, and they're super athletic and strong and graceful, kind of all wrapped into one. And then on top of that, they got to be able to have some skills on the microphone.
Let me ask you this, man. Do you think, because like I've always thought about this, sports like powerlifting, bodybuilding, there are a lot of freaks, in this sphere. But then you look at the NFL, NBA, et cetera. Is there anyone within powerlifting that you've seen and you're like, why are you powerlifting? Why didn't you like go into the league, or why didn't you try this? Because I feel like if top NFL players, if any of them ever tried their hand at powerlifting, we'd see some records, I think. But what do you think about that? Do you think there were any powerlifters in history? Yeah,
I think similarly. I think MMA in and of itself would be in a lot of trouble if those guys tried their hands at, like what if a LeBron James, at a young age just was like, hey, I'm doing jujitsu. Would he just be a bigger, crazier version of Bones Jones? Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it could get really wild, but that's not where the money is, and that's not where. I don't think MMA is popular, is nearly as popular at the moment, but it will be. But yeah, I think a lot of NFL players could absolutely crush some powerlifting. Some of the problem though is that those athletes are tall, so it makes certain things harder. They would make for really good strongman athletes, probably.
John Heck comes to mind.
Yeah, right. And then also, yeah, there have been powerlifters that have come through the ranks before where I'm like, yeah, this guy would be. And Larry Wheels comes to mind right away because he just never had the opportunity. He didn't really go to high school. Some of his story that he was sharing with us years ago on the podcast, I was like, well, what about what if you raced other people? Like you had to have run against other people. He goes, oh yeah, I'd smoke everybody all the time. And I don't know how fast that is, but I would imagine if he worked, I mean, look, the guy's a monster, right? So like, he's somebody, when he said that, I was like, I could be sitting next to a dude that could be like Eddie George or something, like could be an all-time Hall of Fame football player. And he just doesn't even have any idea of his capabilities just because he's never tried it.
Yeah, man. I really feel Larry Wheels is like that guy. I just, everything for him. He just gets so strong. Makes no sense. Anything physically. He's a real beast. I do think that most powerlifters have tried their hands at football, and they either just weren't good enough or they got injured somewhere along the way, because being a professional athlete is a real trick, man. You got to somehow stay healthy enough to be able to do it for long enough to where you get the opportunity in the first place. And what about like concussions and stuff? And what about just some guys just constantly look at like Gronkowski. Gronkowski is one of the few players in the history of the NFL that I've ever seen just continually come back from like these brutal injuries. And he always played really rough, so he probably could have avoided the injuries, but it's like, damn, dude, like that guy came back from so many different injuries and he's still like one of the best tight ends in the history of football. So a lot of times just being able to avoid injury or being healthy and strong enough or fast enough or quick enough to just not get hit hard enough to where you're still healthy enough to continue onward. Seems brutal. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the NFL not for long. I don't know if I've shared this. I got a cousin. He was drafted by the Chargers. He was running back. He was playing first preseason game against the Niners. He broke away. Somebody caught up to him, tackled him from the back. As they pulled him down, blew out his knee. Career's over. It's like, holy crap! Like that's insane. But anyway, long story short, he was just saying like it's impossible to get in trouble if you're actually doing your job in the NFL, because he's like, the stuff we have to study, the stuff we have to learn, plus training. He's like, if you want to go out at night, like you have to be an idiot trying to do that. So, but anyway, that's a secondhand experience. Let's get some firsthand stuff here.
What's up, y'all?
What's up, man?
Hand you over, man.
What's up, fellas?
There he is.
How you doing, big man?
Fucking sick and chilling at the house.
Yeah, so you have come down with the coronavirus. You tested positive for the coronavirus. What did when they test you guys? They're testing all NFL players, I'd imagine. What did they tell you with your test results? Did they say, hey, we're 99.9% sure that you have it, or is 100%, or what are their...
They just said you have a positive test, and then had to come in the next day to, I guess, get double confirmation. So we did that, and now we're stuck at the house for the next 10 days. But really, I had body aches. That's probably the worst I've had. Loss of taste and smell. That's about it, but nothing too severe.
Oh, that's good to hear. And your trainer got it as well, right? Gabe came down with it as well?
Yeah, I'd be disappointed if he didn't get it, because he's with me every day, so he better have it.
So
how long you guys – what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, eating Stan's vertical meals are a lot easier when you can't smell or taste, let me tell you.
A lot easier. Fuck.
So what are you guys like? How long you guys been working together, and what have you guys been working on, like in the off season?
Past 2 years. Yeah, I mean, really, once the season's done, what do we go to? We go to like GPP, and then we go into different phases. But we have our swole days. But a lot of times during the season, man, we do a lot of posterior chain. For what I do, lineman, we do a lot of pushing. So I like to do a lot of pulling exercises. I like to do a lot of reverse hyper. I like to do a lot of box squats. I kind of got over to this side of training or into this whenever I met Donnie Thompson back in, I believe 2014. I saw where he was doing the body tempering online. I was like, I got to go try this. So I went down to Columbia, South Carolina, stayed with him for probably a month and trained and man, got the scoop on kind of everything. He was probably one of the biggest influences as far as, training for me in my career and, just a great dude too. So it's been really fun learning from him.
Did Mark?
How common is it for you guys to, for other professional athletes like yourself, to seek out this much help and this much advice?
Well, it just goes, your position. I think you're trying to get better if you're trying to get more knowledgeable. I look at guys that are the best of what they do are in their field. So, strong guys like him, how those guys prevent injuries. These guys are lifting heavy weights all the time. What can I do to prepare my body to be better suited for battle? How can I be stronger? How can I do better for injury prevention? So really going to the guys that have put their bodies through hell, literally through hell, and really learning their tricks of the trades and trying to implement it into what I do as far as football.
During the season, I want to know about this, man, because game to game, it's impact. Are there ever games where you go in feeling fresh, or is like you go into the season feeling fresh and then you just degrade slowly from there?
Yes, it's like a slow death. We usually ramp it up pretty good during training camp, and then once season starts, I think we lift 2 times a week. Usually we're lifting pretty heavy all year, but as the season progresses, you kind of have to go with how you feel. I mean, you try not to kill yourself, but like you said, we may limit the reps, but we're still using heavy weight. We still want our bodies used to heavy load, going through that stress. So when you get to the football field, nothing's going to kind of overpower you. So, but as far as the frequency, I mean, it's really 2 times a week, maybe 3 times, but usually 2. And it diminishes a lot during the season just because we have so much time practicing and getting ready for our opponent. But off season is a little bit different. We can have a lot more time to individualize our stuff.
Do you think there's
Go ahead, Andrew.
My bad. Do you think there's anything as far as like linemen like trying to make it to the league are overlooking when it comes to their training, whether it be a training method or even something like rest recovery, that sort of thing that you've learned along the way?
Obviously rest and recovery. I've gotten really big on just training like barefoot shoes, trying to get my feet and ankles strong. So, with football, you see guys taping their ankles every day for practice, before games. And over time, that limits your ranges of flexibility. If you have stiff ankles and stiff feet, you're going to have a stiff body. You're going to have stiff mobility. So I'm really big on ankles, trying to get my feet strong. And really for offensive linemen, I'm big on just posterior chain. A lot of times, people's backs are messed up. We sit a lot after practice. Your glutes get shut off. So I'm really big on reverse hypers. I understand Louis kind of invented that because he broke his back, I guess, in 73. So once I had a herniated disc in my back, I found out I better start using this thing if I want to feel better. So once I got into that, obviously ran into Donnie, and he was telling me just the few exercises I should be doing, box squats, stuff like that for my training. I try to avoid deadlifts or regular conventional deadlifts. If you're, a big, tall guy built like a basketball player, do trap bar deadlift instead. So just little stuff. He's helped me with that. But really a lot of posterior chain because we do so much pushing, as offensive linemen. So trying to reverse that.
Got any precautions going on with the coronavirus now that you know that you have it? You taking any like medication or any supplements or anything to help fend it off or doing anything in particular?
We're pretty big on vitamin A, D, and I think B right now. I heard zinc's pretty good. So, yeah, we've had that. Other than that, really don't think there's anything you can take. If you have a fever, you can take stuff for that. But I haven't really had that. Just been staying in my house. I got the gym in my barn outside, so that's good for me. So I don't have to travel anywhere. So I got all that on lock. So other than that, man, I've been pretty bored sitting at the house.
Is your family worried about you, like your mom or something like that? Is she freaking out?
Oh yeah, they're So what they see in the media, I'm supposed to be bedridden with the oxygen tube coming out my nose by now, but. Yeah, I told her I'm doing fine. I just really can't taste or smell anything. So, she's definitely still calling.
When you tested positive, did something go through your mind like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got it? Or was it more like, shit, this might make training a little bit harder now?
Well, I had a feeling I got it just because I started getting body aches like I was about to catch a fever. And I had no fever, but I just had the body aches. And I had a couple nights of that. And and I went and got the test, and I was assuming it was going to come back positive. Far as training, the cardio has been a little bit different just because the lungs are a little bit full. But other than that, I mean, it hasn't been too bad. I feel like the previous 2 days have been the worst part of it, but really today I feel fine.
You know, before this podcast, before you came on, we were talking about how some people get mad at pro athletes because y'all just have intangibles that nobody else really has. Like, you can't teach 6'6", but I was wondering, man, when you were coming up and you were playing football, because I'm assuming you played football from when you were really young, right?
Yeah, started in junior high.
Okay. So obviously there's a lot of guys that end up being 6'6", but they don't make it to the league. So do you think that you had certain intangibles that other guys didn't have, or was it certain things and certain ways that you approach training and your development? Like you mentioned the training barefoot thing, and that's rare, right? So Are there things like that like you did that separated you from the pack over time?
I mean, I played pretty much every sport. So I played football starting in junior high, but really got serious about it in high school. But I ran track, I ran the quarter, I ran the mile relay, I did shot put. I played so I was a big basketball guy. So I played basketball more than I did football growing up.
Wow.
And then I played some baseball. So really I was kind of well-rounded, I guess, when it comes to that aspect. But I think as far as transitioning to football, I think basketball helped me the most because that was my first love.
Basketball helped you?
Yeah. As far as change of direction, being quick on your feet, and as far as not wanting to get crossed over and look stupid, I feel like that correlates to playing offensive tackle position pretty well. So moving your feet, going up and down the court, being athletic, that definitely helped. I feel like more than anything was basketball.
Were you a lineman in high school, or did you play other positions?
I was a quarterback in high school.
That's quite the transition, right?
I was a quarterback, so my senior year.
You just run everybody over, or what?
I could throw it, though. I could throw it pretty good. My senior year, I started running a little bit more. Not so much my junior year, but once I got to college, I played quarterback JUCO for the first season, and then during that spring, I switched to tight end. So I was probably 250 at the time, 255.
We got any plays in the playbook where it involves you throwing the football?
We have had them. We never run them. Problem is, I wear a plaster cast over my thumbs when I play, so I don't break this ligament here, because that happens a lot to linemen. They get their thumbs hung in somebody's jersey or face mask, and it'll get broke off. So if they asked me to, I'd remove that sumbitch pretty quick and throw it down.
Thinking about like the young athlete, because you said you were the quarterback in high school. Oftentimes, the quarterback's going to be like the have the highest IQ. They're the MVP at in most cases. But you switched over to linemen. Do you have any advice for some young kids that maybe they make it to the next level in college, and the coach is like, "Oh, you're definitely nope, that's not you. You're going to be over here." Sometimes they're like a little they're not easily claimed to that new position. Do you have any advice for them?
It's a shot to their ego. That's what it is. Because when I first got asked about playing offensive line, I said, "Hell no, I don't want to go play that sloppy position." Look at all these sloppy dudes. Yeah, but really, man, so when I visited TCU coming out of JUCO, Coach Patterson was like, "Man, you're going to be 300 pounds." He said, "You're not going to be playing tight end." So that guy, he has an eye for moving guys around. Coach Stoops has done it. He's moved guys from D tackle to offensive tackle. Gary Patterson had a guy that played running back in high school, moved into defensive end. His name was Tommy Blake out of TCU. Ran a 4.5 40 at 270. So. Yeah, man, a lot of times you get guys with big frames, that play tight end or play some positions they may grow out of. And so as far as the tackle position, a lot of guys are ex-basketball players or ex-tight ends. These guys that have a big frame, and the demand now as far as being nimble and quick and athletic is higher than it's ever been, because the guys coming off the edge are, new breed of guys. So what I would tell those guys is listen to your coach, and, it can help you out in the long run. It'll be an adjustment at first, but you'll gradually get to know it a little bit more.
What's the hardest part? I mean, it's got to be tough being on the end like that, and then having the quickness and the speed of some of these guys nowadays. Do you have a hard time getting out to those players and being able to block them, or what's, if you have a weakness, what's something that throws you off from some of these guys?
I mean, nothing really. I feel like throws me off. Sometimes if you get beat off the snap, I mean, that's usually a play that you can't have back. So a lot of us, man, is focus. It's really like a chess match when it goes out there to the games. So just little stuff like if your stances are switched up versus a run or pass, they'll pick up on little stuff like that. Things on film that you can give away. So it's very, these guys are so smart. So such a cerebral sport, especially when you're in it. Just these guys pick it up on stuff. So really, I think as far as my game, the worst enemy is me as far as losing focus or messing up on plays or IDs or something like that. As far as blocking guys on the edge, I've been pretty solid with that.
Since you actually mentioned focus, I'm really curious, especially coming from a professional athlete as yourself, no matter what sport, people play, whether it's like people are powerlifters or whatever, people tend to sometimes not be able to focus on what they're doing at that moment in time. And especially with you, the stakes are so high. I'm assuming that you've learned, or the coaches that you've worked with over the years have taught you certain ways to kind of click in. Are there any things that you do before a game or during the game or whatever that just makes you be there and in the moment?
Yeah, well, you do what you practice. And so a lot of times we practice being distracted. Everybody has their phone up their ass so much. They're up there looking at Instagram, scrolling 3 seconds at a time. And you do that day in and day out. What are you practicing? Only focusing on something for 5 seconds before you're going to the next page. So you're practicing that. So our coach always says, focus for 4 or 5 seconds at a time for a play. One thing that I've been introduced to is the concentration grids. So a lot of sports psychologists will give that to players. You can do it before games or, right when you wake up or before you go to bed. But basically it's a time where you get timed and you have a grid that's jumbled up with all the numbers from 0 to 100, and you try to find it as fast as you can, and you gradually improve over time. But basically what it does is if you find yourself losing focus, you're able to dial it back in. And really, man, it's about practicing it. And, just like I said, what do we practice doing now? We practice being distracted with our phones. We're living in the distracted world now, and you don't realize what it does to your brain, how it kind of rewires you.
Yeah. Wow.
What you been doing with your food? I know that Stan has been helping you out. So what's been going on with your nutrition?
I have vertical diet, so I have all the meals in the fridge. Sometimes we make it fresh, but man, it's really helped. I think the biggest thing with that has been the sodium too. Is how I feel like there's been a misconception behind that. And with athletes, we have a woman that comes in, part of a system called leveling. So they test your sweat and they see how much sodium you have and how much you're sweating out per hour. And if you don't replace that, man, that's the biggest probably performance reducer there is, because you don't replace those sodium, electrolytes, you lose blood volume, which equates to blood oxygen. So you lose energy. You get fatigued real easy. So he's been big on the thermotab. So I'll usually take 3 or 4 of those with every meal. A lot of the ground beef, his staples is ground beef, white rice with bone broth in it, egg, and sometimes we'll have orange juice, and he likes to do yogurt in there, make it like a little creamsicle. So that's kind of his dessert, so to speak. So we do that, but man, just staying pretty consistent with that. And far as feeling good, I'm not pounding a lot of the Gatorade like I used to. Try to limit the sugars. And as far as my weight, man, I'm probably the heaviest I've been, 325, close to 330. Feeling good, and just staying consistent on it.
How'd you get introduced?
A lot different than old school linemen, eating pizza and Philly cheesesteaks and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and the big thing about Stan is that this whole diet's based on being easy to digest, easy on your stomach. And so, when you're eating pizza, pasta, and pancakes all the time, you're going to be bloated, you're going to be feeling like crap. And so this has been a big way to reduce this.
How'd you get introduced to Stan anyway? Because that's dope.
I think I saw him on Shark Tank a few years back with his cooler, but Gabe, I think, reached out to him. I was, looking at different diets and trying different stuff. What'd you say? Oh yeah, Jesse got him in touch with Gabe. Gabe got him in touch with me, and he came. I guess he was in Philly, and he drove out here and pretty much brought some over. We had some, and then he gave us whole spill on the diet. And, he's just a pretty impressive individual, just being around him. I love how he speaks. He'll speak for 2 hours. There will never be a pause. He's so, with a guy like that, he's pretty impressive. So, been following his diet. I love how excited he gets talking about it. How it's pretty bland, but just how excited he is about it every day. And really, it works. If you stick to it, it does. It definitely works.
Do you mix in some, cheat meals here and there, or you stay pretty strict on it?
I stay pretty consistent. I will have the Ben & Jerry's ice cream every now and then. I will order pizza sometimes. But yeah, usually pretty strict in the house.
It's really cool. Like, first off, that you're doing the vertical diet, and because when you were talking about the way you're eating now, when you see a lot of athletes on social media, like you see some athletes going vegetarian and all this because of all the meat stuff, and sometimes I'm like, how are some of these guys performing at a high level if they're legit eating like that? So I'm curious, first off, what were you eating like beforehand, before you got on the vertical diet? And did you see a big difference in your performance when you started doing this?
Yeah, I was eating, really for me, it's a lot about calories. So a lot of carbs for me. But like you said, the big reason getting off of it is the inflammation you get from all that, just the bloating, the gas, all the bullshit you got to put up with, you get tired of. And then mixing that and then with the sodium. Being real, cautious about how much salt you're putting in your system, or, really trying to optimize that. And that's been the biggest game changer as far as performance, man. If you're really conscious about that, loading up on your salt, your fatigue levels, as far as your energy, it goes through the roof as compared to, when I'm coming the rookie, I'm pretty much eating whatever, used to have about fucking 5 chocolate chip cookies at lunch every day, just being young. But once you get older, it all that kind of goes away. So trying to get better in my last few years I got in the league.
How do you manage your sleep? Because I imagine sleep's got to be tough, especially, when you guys are playing big games and you're coming off that high of the victory or whatever happens in the game, and then you have to go back to your hotel room and try to figure out how to sleep and start to recover for the next week. So how do you manage your sleep?
We have an Oura Ring tracker. I'm not sure if you heard of those. That does a pretty good job of tracking your sleep, as far as your REM sleep, your light sleep, deep sleep. It tracks all that. A lot of times, man, has been trying to get, I have a basement here. So probably when I want to sleep really good, I go down to my basement. So it's totally dark down there. So when I've done my, taking naps in my regular room versus the basement, I have the most REM. I have the most deep sleep, because it's totally dark. There is no light at all. And you'll be surprised how much that makes a difference. A lot of times after games, it's hard for me to sleep, just because of adrenaline. So even if I want to, it's kind of hard to. But usually if I go down the basement where it's cold, it's dark, there is no light, I do get my best sleep. Try to limit the TV before, or the phone. Try to shut that off, 30 minutes before bed. And that helps a lot too. Any big recovery tactics that you use, especially in season, since you get so beat up? Use a sauna a lot. Really? Big, yeah. Sauna. Sauna's big. Sauna's big for stress. It's the heat stress. It's good for your system. It's good just for your overall body stress, reducing that. I feel like it helps me sleep. We do a lot of that. We do a lot of cold tub, getting in there usually first thing in the morning. So I feel like the cold does a good job of blowing your fight or flight mechanism. So as soon as you get in cold water, you want to gasp for air. So as far as like breathing techniques, a few guys do the Wim Hof method. Not sure if you're familiar with that. Mm-hmm. Dude out of the Netherlands who's pretty much able to control his own immune system with breath work. And they've, he's taught this to, dozens and dozens of people. And they've did this in a university study where they went to, they all got ejected with E. coli and they were all able to fight it off. So he does a lot of that. He does a lot of cold exposure. He goes a little bit deeper than I do, but sometimes I'll do that. But yeah, those are pretty much the 3 staples. I do, body tempering a lot. Body tempering is huge. Cold tub, sauna, the breath work. Usually I'm pretty good.
This is kind of a personal question, but have you ever shit yourself in the sauna before?
Shit myself in the sauna? No, I haven't. I've almost passed out in the sauna. I shit myself. I've taken NO Explode before practice and almost shit myself and had to run back in the bathroom.
Yeah, you got to be careful in those Philadelphia Eagles pants, right? They're super tight.
We actually had a guy a couple of years ago. He did just that. He took a few extra scoops of NO Explode, and he ended up shitting himself out there in the field. And he went in between series, and instead of getting whole new pants, he just put another pair of pants on top of it, and it bled through. So it was a shitty situation, you could say.
Wow. No, I shot myself in the sauna. I think that's why Mark asked you that question. He wanted to make it a little bit personal. So like the heat kind of spread the smell, and everyone was sitting there, started looking around, and I didn't say anything, but I shot myself in the sauna. That's why. That's why.
I had somebody who I thought shit in the sauna, so it's probably the same situation.
Hey, I think you've probably been asked this question before, but I mean, you've been in the league for a while. Initially, when you got, I guess, I don't know how they disperse your money when you go professional, but when you got that first big check or first few big checks, did you know how to handle yourself? Did you have family that was like, hey, do this or whatever? Or were you just kind of like, hey, let's go?
Oh, they said, put it in the bank, dumbass. That's what they told me. That's what I did. Obviously, had to get a place in Philly, so I had that. I got a place real close to the facility. As far as any big expenses, I had a truck. I think I got a house down in Texas for my mom, and that was really it. And really, as far as the expenses I've had my whole career, I mean, I've bought a place in Oklahoma, a ranch, about 500 acres. But other than that, man, I'm not real big on my jewelry. I don't give a fuck about jewelry. I got I guess the best vehicle I had was a Raptor, but the transmission blew up on it, so I'm selling that piece of shit. And that's about it. That's about as lavish as I've been.
What was it like? Did you get like physically a check, with a bunch of zeros on it, or just in the bank account?
You either have a check or direct deposit. Mine's more direct deposit, so probably the best thing I don't see that. Yeah, man, as far as living, I mean, I grew up pretty modest. I mean, we didn't really have a whole lot. So long as I got something to eat and somebody to hang with, I'm pretty good. Yeah, I don't really need a whole lot.
And what also spurred you to create a podcast, man? Because like, first off, I mean, you see the trend of like some athletes are doing more things so that when they get off the field or when they get off the court, they got something going. But a podcast, I haven't seen many pro athletes podcast, and then podcast well too, because like you're good at conversation and like questions and all that type of stuff. So what spurred that?
Well, pretty much my marketing guy reached out to me. He's like, hey, you should think about doing this. And all right, man. So we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're not doing nothing. We're at the house anyway. So we started it off, and the first episode was kind of rough. My internet started just going ape shit. It was disconnecting and reconnecting. So after some of those issues with that, it's gotten gradually better and better. But, I've just found myself wanting to ask just regular questions, maybe that the regular fan want to know from these people. I like to ask them kind of how they got to where they are now, kind of what inspires them, what, how their journey was, I guess, to where they were. And everybody's story is a little bit different. So it's been cool talking to all these different people. It's been fun.
Did you ever have any times in your football career where you were thinking about not continuing onward, or have you always kind of had this goal of being in the NFL and you kind of just, it was always like maybe within reach?
As far as my goals in the NFL, I want to be the best tackle every year. That's my goal. As far as, once you get some of your accomplishments, things change. But for me, I just signed a 4-year contract. Probably my goal is to, play that 4 years and then reevaluate things. As far as having everything I've ever wanted, I have that now. But I love it. I love training with the guys. I love playing football. It's really something I did all my life. So moving forward with that, outside of football, I could see myself doing maybe player personnel, something with the NFL, scouting guys or directing the organization, being in that. I could also see myself being at the house fishing every day, not doing a damn thing, training, and just taking some time off, be around my family. So that's probably, those are kind of what I'm thinking when I'm done.
After the Super Bowl, I mean, there's almost nothing else after that, right? But like, how do you keep yourself motivated? How do you stay hungry?
It's really about the guys that I'm with. And I mean, this is really all I know. So all I know is train. All I know is practice. So you get in these habits. You've been doing them for so long. It's hard to break habits. So especially the guys I'm playing with, I got a lot of great talent on the offensive line, a lot of great players that push me and motivate me. So one of the guys is Jason Peters. You know, he's a future Hall of Famer, but you know, he's 38 years old and he's still doing it. And he's, you know, I look at guys like that and some of the older vets around the league, and those are the guys that I look up to.
You've tested positive in the past for performance-enhancing drugs, and that seems to be in your rearview mirror nowadays. What was that experience like going through that?
It was fun. It was fun as hell. Oh, man, tell you what it did. It woke my ass up. So when everybody thought I was a fraud, I had my back against the wall. You know, I had my best season to date. It was in 2017. So I came out. I went against the best pass rusher, feels like every game the whole year. And so I just kept gradually picking up and getting better. And so I feel like whenever people evaluate me or look at how I played in the past, I don't really think anything's changed. So there was no drop-off. If anything, I've gotten nothing but better ever since I've been in the league. So and as far as my accomplishments, everything that I've accomplished has been after suspensions. And so after serving my time, I lost all my guaranteed money. I lost a lot of people that supported me or were behind me. So the coolest thing about it is I got to revamp myself. And with everything against the wall, man, I've done nothing but just excel. And so these next 4 years, I'm going to give them hell and keep proving myself right.
When you say you lost your guaranteed money, wait, what does that mean?
Yeah, so if you get a suspension or if you if you fail a drug test, there's other stuff too that you can violate it. But so you have a contract. So you have your guaranteed contract. So mine was, I don't know, it was 5 years for 64, and I had like 35 million guaranteed money. So that's money that you're going to see. You're supposed to see every penny. So I lost that. So no money's guaranteed. You're still making the money, but if you get hurt or if you get, you know, a career-ending injury, you don't get nothing. So that's what it means, guaranteed money.
And what's the the drug testing protocol in the NFL?
I mean, as far as for PEDs, I mean, they test us pretty regularly. For street drugs, we have usually an annual, one time a year. And if you pass that, you're good. But far as, so once you test positive, you're in the program. So far as me, my career, I've been tested more than anybody. So once you fail a test, you're getting tested probably 3 times as much as everybody else. And so that's what I did. You get blood tested for growth hormone, and then you get urine tested for everything else.
You know,
mental side of things must be really difficult with travel and the different teams you guys are playing, and the high level of competitiveness is just on another level, and then you're dealing with injuries and so forth, going from one game to another. How have you been able to deal with the mental side of things? Is there certain things you mentioned earlier about kind of practicing with focus? Or is there other ways that you're training your mind?
Well, I mean, a lot of it's, your routine. I think phones only create anxiety. I feel like you do nothing but watch the news. All that does is create anxiety. Everything you see, I feel like from that perspective, is usually negative. Usually the news is all negative. Usually the internet, any discussions or anything is going to be negative. A lot of trolls out there. So it's really what you want to put your mind to. And so I feel like if you can limit those two, that'll be huge. And then I feel like, it's part about who you hang around with, the group you hang around with. If you're hanging around good people that support you, that are behind you, that are positive, it's going to feed off on you. If you're around our coach calls it the fellowship of the miserable, if you're around those guys, they're going to drag you down. And so be careful who you hang around.
I'm curious about this, man. because I think Mark too, I've asked him this question, but when because you kind of said you have everything you could ever want, right? And obviously you have the money to pay for anything you could ever possibly want for the most part. But did that or does that change your level of happiness as an individual now that you have all of that? Like,
I feel like money only amplifies what you were anyway. So
okay.
That's what I feel. So, like I said, there's a lot of guys that want to get this big contract. Okay, once you get it, then what? You think it's over? No, it only intensifies because you're held to a higher standard of play. Once you're a certain player, if you're an all-pro player, that's your expectation now. So things change. So just because you get your contract, it's not right off into the sunset. Shit only gets real. It gets more real as that progresses in your career. But like I said, man, there's only so much you can do in a day. There's only so much you can control. And so far as me, let the haters hate. I'm going to keep doing me. I got my team. I got my people that care about me. That's who I hang around with. We train, we get after it. And then we get after people on Sundays. And, looking to have about 4 more years of it before I hang it up.
So with that being said, like what are the things that do actually bring you happiness, and like where do you feel that your purpose lies as an individual?
I feel like my purpose lies is going to be helping the guys when I get done with this. So younger guys, I can kind of live through them. I can tell stories of my journey, how I got to where I'm at, the hardships, stuff I went through, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and use that to direct younger guys. I feel like that's where my heart is. Where I'm most happy is when I'm around my family, when I'm around my kids. I love fishing, man. I love getting away from a lot of people. I'm from the country. I'm not a big city person, so
yeah.
I like training. If I'm not training, I'm pretty pissed. If I can train, if I can eat good, if I can fish or do something like that, I'm pretty happy. So there it is.
What was the key to getting that Super Bowl ring? If you could kind of sum it up, what was different about that team in particular that was able to get that done against the Patriots?
Yeah, I mean, we weren't expected to do much. After Carson got hurt, we were expected to be one and done in the playoffs. So I feel like far as expectations, we didn't have any, so we had nothing to lose. So we had only everything to gain. So when you're going into a game expecting to lose by a lot and you go out there and you smash somebody in the mouth, it just gives you the utmost confidence. And really, I feel like we had the perfect blend of people as far as younger guys, young energy, and then, the sophisticated vets who have, some who have already won a Super Bowl and had that knowledge. I feel like it was the perfect blend. And when we got to play the Patriots, they were a great team. We knew they were a great offense, but as far as their defense, it wasn't nothing that was, that caught us off guard or anything. So we knew we could score points. And then really, man, a lot of it goes down to luck too. I mean, far as, the plays we made, I mean, it was just, everything kind of clicked that night, and I'm glad it did. It was a fun season. It was a long season, but it was, all the ups and downs. It was just a crazy year, and the way we ended it off was special.
Very cool. You guys have anything else?
Yeah, I'm just curious. Who's the freakiest athlete you ever had to go up against?
Vaughn's up there. Von Miller. He's a good one. Khalil Mack's another one. I mean, far as probably
doesn't surprise me because Von Miller uses a slingshot.
Yeah, slingshot. Yeah, he was also a 110 meter hurdle state champion too, but a lot of people didn't know that out of DeSoto. So, a guy, that's how he can, so good with his hips. He can bend. He's strong, good feet. Khalil's like that. He's just a little bit bigger. Vaughn's probably 245, 250. Khalil's probably 270, 275. So those guys are probably the cream of the crop.
Have you had the opportunity to speak to high school kids about some of your experiences, and has the topic of performance-enhancing drugs, has that come up before? Because I guess now you could be a go-to person saying, hey, look, I got smacked on the wrist a bunch of times for this, and it's, here's what I found type of thing.
Yeah, I can show you the before, the during, and after. So, when it comes down to that, I can say far as learning from it, I have, and far as showing people what I can do when I have my back against the wall. So everybody call me a fraud, this and that. I can show you what it can do to motivate you. I mean, I feel like my career is pretty damn strange when it comes down to as far as all my positions I played, the stuff I've been through, and then the success I'm having now. I feel like it's at least be a good short story to read.
Right.
Mark mentioned, I think it was at the beginning of this, that you don't want to be accepted potentially for the Hall of Fame, right? And so why are you so adamant about that? Because, I mean, I don't know if there are any guys that have ever tested positive that are in the Hall of Fame, but I mean, I don't think that should mess you up.
I don't know, man. I'll tell you what, after I failed my test, I can tell you what, I've been tested more than anybody in the damn league. And so if anybody thinks that my stuff isn't credible now, then, hey, they're just going to be a hater all the way through. I feel like players in the 70s and 80s, let's get real with some of these guys and how they looked.
Yeah.
Definitely a different league. There was definitely no testing back then. So it was, I'm not going to say any names, but I'm pretty sure there's been some guys running hot in the Hall of Fame.
And, also, I mean, I think I'm the one guy on this podcast who knows the least about football in general. But like basketball, the game has changed. You mentioned that the football has changed. Like basketball is like a 3-point game now. It's more than ever. Has football, do you think, changed in a way too that's much different than back in the day?
Yeah, I feel like guys now, I mean, we're not as big on the offensive line. I mean, there is some big guys, but a lot of it is speed. Linebackers, you don't really see a lot of the 6'4s, 265, Jeremiah Trotters in the filling the A gaps now. You got to have guys that can cover. You got to have guys that can cover these Tyreek Hills, running backs out the backfield. You got to have guys that have some serious speed. So if you have guys that are stiff, that are big, that can't run, you're going to get run right out of the league. So it's changing. It's gotten a lot more dynamic, a lot more speed in the game. And so that goes, really for all positions.
Yeah. Speaking of change, with the extra precautions that the NFL or the NBA is doing with the NBA bubble and stuff, have they let you guys know about any of the differences for the league for the season coming up?
We have all these different protocols, but at the end of the day, I heard about a trainer the other day who was totally isolated and was telling all of his kids telling all the guys on the team to stay, at home, and he ends up getting it. So it's like we're trying to rope the wind. We're trying to corral something that we have no damn control of. And, you can talk about all this and all that, but it's not looking good so far. Here I am at the house. There's been a lot more people added to the list. You've been seeing Major League Baseball games get canceled day in and day out. And really, I don't think people have a damn clue about it, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
In the NFL, are they going to, like, if someone does test positive, are they just trying to do what they did with you? Will they do that during the season as well? Have them take a
And what's going to happen when our quarterback tests positive or something, or start a quarterback, and are we going to have damn chemical warfare in the NFL? Is that how we're going to sabotage people's damn seasons? It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. We've said a lot of times on this podcast, we agree with what you just said. We, it's great that the government, stepped in to maybe put things on pause for a minute, but at the same time, there's really nothing anyone can do about it. And I agree with what you said at the end there, is that it just doesn't seem like anybody really knows a whole lot on what can help. Seems like social distancing makes some sense. Seems like washing your hands makes some sense. But once we start getting beyond that, it's like, who the hell knows what makes sense?
Yeah, we're damn entertainers. We're out there to brighten people's days up. And so we're going to do that and get everybody sick. And fans are going to come there. We're supposed to, have no fans. And then now they're saying fans can come in, but you can wear your mask. I can tell you how that's going to go. People are going to get drunk. They're going to take that summit off, and it's going to be Corona everywhere.
Hey, what was it like for you to have Stone Cold Steve Austin on your podcast? That must have been a lot of fun.
Oh, it was fun, man. I like his attitude. Especially all the hell that I've gone through. That's where I've kind of changed to. I've been putting the bird up a lot over the past few years. Just, I've looked up to him as far as his wrestling career, and then just his attitude, man. He's a funny guy. He's from Texas, you know, a lot of similar interests. He likes the outdoors. He's a pretty country boy, but yeah, man, he was definitely entertaining back in the day. I enjoyed all his matches. I enjoyed his commentary, and as far as being funny and authentic, man, he was one of the best.
All right, so
how come an offensive lineman gets paid about 10 times less as the pretty quarterbacks?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, tackles are paid pretty handsomely, but I mean, the quarterback is. I mean, it's the America's position, so they got to get the America's salary, I guess. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people like to dispute that. These guys aren't getting touched except on Sundays. That's why they can play so long. Hey, but that's why everybody wants to play quarterback.
Before the podcast, and we mentioned this too, we saw a video. It's on Mark's Instagram, and you were like training with Stan. That's right. You did the people's eyebrow, and immediately we're like, wait, what? Whoa, that looks like The Rock. But wait, he also looks like Stone Cold, and we're kind of convinced at this point that like
he also looks like Mankind.
like you, has anyone ever told you that like you look like a mix of those two? Because like, bro, I mean.
I thought about going. I'm still thinking about going into wrestling. Jim Ross is real big OU fan, so he was at our games all the time on the sidelines.
Yeah,
I've been texting him. If this shit gets canceled, son, I'm going somewhere to wrestle somebody.
Damn.
I don't know what my name would be, but we could figure out one pretty quick.
That would be amazing.
And through this podcast, man, you also mentioned a few times about just like. It doesn't matter about things that you really can't control, right? And Mark and myself and Andrew, we've been paying a lot of attention to, I mean, you've probably heard of stoicism before. And I've heard that a lot of NFL teams and just professional teams, like someone there like introduces them to that. Has that just been something that you've come up with? Like you don't worry about shit that you can't control, or do you dabble in that stuff?
No, I have. I've done it all. I've dabbled, and I've learned you're only going down a rabbit hole, and you're trying to control all these things, and you can't. You can't control any of it. And so everybody wants to be liked in this world. Everybody puts their best, Instagram post up with all their filters and all this bullshit up to put out their best me.
Yeah.
And with my journey, with the suspensions, all the bullshit I've been through, hey, I've had no choice but to go through hell and come out the other side and a brand new man. And I feel liberated. I feel motivated. I feel like it's the biggest motivating factor in my career. And as far as changing it, I wouldn't change anything. But it's definitely been a learning experience, humbling experience, and thankful to just be playing.
So then real quick, like when you are speaking to some of these kids, I'm sure some of them come up to you and they're saying like, even coaches are, kind of pushing me towards taking something because if I want to make it to the next level, I'm going to have to just, get that little extra edge on everybody else. So what can you tell some of the younger athletes that are listening?
I can say, look at my journey, son, and say, don't do it. I said, it'll cost you a lot of money. It'll cost you your reputation. And if that's something you don't want to mess up, then I suggest staying away from it. And so that's exactly what I tell them. And I'd say, look at the humiliation you're going to go through. I'll just say, turn on a YouTube clip of me, and you'll learn a lot.
Where do you think this drive came from? This drive come from grandpa or your dad or your mom, or where do you think so? Or you just always been like this?
I've been like this, man. I feel like, I was drafted 4th overall, all this, had a lot of expectations to play tackle. Then once I failed the drug test and everybody thought I was a fraud or that all this athleticism was fucking, just juiced up, or if I was just a steroid monkey my whole life. And then I had to come out and prove myself over and over again. And I've had no drop off in what I've done. I've only gotten better in everything I've done. As far as my body's gotten nothing but bigger. I'm better than I've ever been. And so, and with that, the first time I got prescribed tests, my test levels were 500. So I got prescribed tests that was for 200. So to put my test levels in the 700s. So usually the higher body fat you have as a lineman, the less testosterone you're going to have. And so when I got popped the first time, I was taking that. And so whenever I guess your TD ratios are off, that's what got flagged. the second time I had no intention of doing anything. I was taking a supplement and got popped for ostarine. And so there's been a few guys that have tested positive for that. One of them was Taylor Lewan last year or 2 years ago. A dude from Clemson coming out in college football. I think he's with the Giants now, tested positive for ostarine. And so the first time was like, yeah, I learned from it. The second time, man, I was like, fuck, here we go again. I had no intention. I had my fully guaranteed contract. I had everything I wanted. All that's gone. And so suspended 10 games, and then I come back. I played 2 games that season, and the next season is when we win the Super Bowl. And so I was like, yeah, really just knocked down on my ass, and I had nowhere to go from there. I was like, dude, this can't get any worse. So here I go again.
The extremely frustrating part about that is ostarine doesn't really do too much for you. It might give you a little something, but not much.
I was out there training at Donnie's, and I told him about it, and I didn't know what it was. He really didn't know what it was. But the second time I got popped was ostarine, and so everything I'm saying to y'all is what I said under oath when I had to go into battle with the courts or with the NFL. So everything I'm saying to you is what I said to them. And so definitely suck, man. There's definitely, I mean, what can you do? There is no excuses. The NFL says what you take, or, any supplements are risk. So anything now is, it's NSF certified. So if I'm taking anything, usually what I'm taking is probiotics and maybe some on-it joint oil. And so that's about it for me.
You have some players on your team where you just scratch your head and you're not sure why they're so good. Like, they don't look the part. They don't lift. Like, they're not that big into the weight room and not that big into training, but they come on the field and they just, for whatever reason, kick your ass here and there. And you're like, God damn.
There's some guys that look the part and can't play. And then there's some guys that look like a couple scoops of mashed potatoes with arms and can't really lift a whole lot of weights, but can go out there and just fucking plow dudes over and are farm strong. I've seen lots of guys like that. And those are the guys usually from Iowa or, somewhere pretty damn, where they're told they're a piece of shit their whole life and they got to go work on the farm. So usually those type of guys are the ones like that.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Thanks again. Where can people find out more about you, and where can people learn about your podcast?
Go to Instagram, Lane Johnson 65. That's where my Outside the Lane show's on, and that and Twitter. So those are both the handles on it. So that's it.
Awesome, man. Have a great rest of your day.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Damn, that guy was great.
He really does remind me of Stone Cold. Like straight up.
The goatee definitely sells the Stone Cold look.
Ready to hit it to the stunner at any moment, wasn't he?
Yeah. He would be strong.
He would be great in wrestling.
Oh, my God. 6'6", 320?
How big is Brock Lesnar? Look that up real quick.
Brock Lesnar is probably 6'3" or 6'4", and he had to lose a lot of weight to get into the UFC, because UFC allows you to weigh 265, and Brock Lesnar, even when he was wrestling, he was like 310 or something. He was huge.
Yeah,
so big boy. Yeah, 6'6", 320. That's massive.
Yeah, it's crazy. And he said he's better now, so he's probably like faster and quicker and heavier at that weight. It's all that sodium.
I liked a lot of what he was saying about how he basically just had to shut his mouth and perform to be able to get past the PED situation. So that's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to lose. And then you're also going to continue to have people that are going to, people now, probably are like, oh, he just figured out a way to pass the test, or, people are probably still spitting negativity, but he's doing it, man. He's kicking ass, and he's, just not, he's not, like you said, he's not going to, go down that rabbit hole of things that he can't control. And I thought that was really useful as well.
Yeah. And again, like, just reiterating how frustrating it would be to lose guaranteed contract money over Ostarine. That's the same stuff that I was taking. Now, obviously, I am not a 6'6", whatever frame, whatever, but it didn't turn me into a super athlete. Not that I was even anywhere near like mediocre, but I mean, dude, an NFL player wouldn't notice a difference taking all of the Ostarine in the world. They would get a lot of drawbacks, actually. They would get a lot of the testosterone drop. But that hurts just thinking about losing out on a huge contract like that over a tiny, I mean, it is a PED, yes. I'm not saying like it wasn't justified, but just the fact that that's what it was is like that sucks.
Yeah, it's just a banned substance, so they got to try to take a hard line on that and do what they can. But yeah, I mean, you got a good point. It's like that's not going to really do much for you, but it's hard to say. It's hard to tell like how much does testosterone do for you. I mean, you already have it naturally in your body. It obviously helps increase muscle mass, helps increase strength. But so does working out, so does having good genetics. And, so it's always interesting whenever PEDs come up, why are they, why is there a governing body hovering over top of them, not allowing them, who really knows? I think maybe initially they would say like player safety type thing, but I don't know why. Here's what I do believe very strongly is that if those things were not regulated, I don't think we would see a negative impact. Now, you would probably want to have somebody coaching, or you'd want somebody giving information to the athletes on how to utilize these products, because they could go above and beyond and start to take some really weird stuff. But for the most part, people would take testosterone, growth hormone. They would probably take some things if possible to just help them manage their hormone levels and try to keep them optimal. But I don't really see what it would do from a negative perspective. The only thing I can think of is that, if somebody does take them versus somebody not taking them, maybe that person that doesn't take them, maybe they're at a disadvantage. And so maybe that's one of the reasons they don't want to open the floodgates, because they don't want everyone to feel like they have to do that. But like I said, going for a fucking run is performance enhancing as well. Maybe it's a more natural form. I guess that's the difference maker. But as we saw in Bigger, Stronger, Faster, it's not illegal to go in like a hyperbaric chamber. It's not illegal to, donate blood, or it's not illegal to do these certain things that give you some similar effects sometimes. But I guess it just depends on the perception of it.
Yeah, and I know it's apples to oranges, but I think when we had Branch Warren on, and whenever we have an elite level bodybuilder, the PED questions come up, and what he was saying, he was just like, oh, fine, take away all of the PEDs, the same people at the top will still be at the top. Like, it doesn't matter, when it comes to who's going to be the best, they'll still be the best with or without. But I think what you said about making other players that don't want to take it feel like they absolutely have to take it, that's a really good point that I never thought of.
I also think though, when you look at athletes, they want to do every possible thing that they can do that's potentially within the rules to be at the top, right? So let's say that there were no bans on any PEDs. Like Mark said, there has to be somebody that could help these guys figure it out. But these are athletes, bro. Like, there's some growth hormone, there's some test. Like, okay, I'll take what you say, but let me add all this to it too. Like, I think you're going to see a lot of athletes that will go too far. And, if you go too far with some of that stuff, it can be very dangerous. So I think that's one good reason. Athletes will take it to the absolute highest level if they can. And with substances, that could be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great explanation, Nsima. I think that makes sense, and that's probably, it's a good reason for people not to ever get involved in it. I have people that ask me about it all the time. Now, normally when somebody asks me about steroids or performance enhancing drugs, they normally already made their mind up. That's usually what I tell them is like, hey, kind of sounds like, you're starting to kick the tires, you're thinking about purchasing the car, you're really looking at it, you're giving it a once over. And you probably thought about that a lot more than just, asking me. By the time you ask me, you probably have kind of already thought about at some point I'm going to do that. Now it's a matter of like when sort of thing. But I usually discourage people against it because once you take steroids, then you have to forever figure out how to manage them. Like, what's the end game? What's the next thing? I can't take them and, I can't weigh 180 and not have a lot of muscle mass and just say, I'm just going to build myself up to be like Nsima. And after I do that, that might take 3 years, 4 years. After I do that, then I'm going to come off of them. Like, it just doesn't work. That would be amazing if they did. I think everybody would probably would. I think millions of more people would be on them. I think if that was the case, but they don't work that way. And then you have to decide, like, how am I going to manage them? Do I want to donate blood a couple times a year so my blood doesn't get too thick? Can I self-regulate myself so I don't take too much, as you just mentioned? There's oral steroids. There's injectable steroids. Some steroids are way worse on your body. Like, they're way more dangerous, like trenbolone or something like that. It's just that's not naturally occurring in your body, and it can wreak havoc on your body. It can wreak havoc on your sleep. There's a lot of stuff to think about. I don't think people really, and we've talked about this on the show before. Maybe we should do another show on it again. Just because it's a great topic to talk about. And I like talking about it because I think it can be helpful to people. But yeah, if you're listening to this show and you're a fan and you're thinking, I want to be big and jacked, just know that you don't need steroids to be big and jacked. They can be an addition and they can assist. They can help for sure. But it is a major, major decision. Andrew has some experience with it to the point where it's like, now you have to decide, you're going to go back on, back off. You're going to, mix and match, and people that are doing SARMs and different things like that. I mean, it's all something to really take into consideration because your body's natural rhythm is a pretty damn good one. And if you can encourage your body through nutrition and through some regular supplementation, if you can encourage your body to continue down that path with good sleep and just good habits in general, then you don't have to really worry about how am I going to manage these drugs, where I'm going to get these drugs from, because they're illegal. There's a lot of stuff to think about.
Yeah, that'll be a fun topic, and people love it when you talk about that. It's just that dark secret that nobody wants to bring to light until Bigger, Stronger, Faster came out.
But it is really interesting. Like what Lane said, it's like, okay, he tested positive for some test and then some Austrian, and people were automatically discounting everything he's ever done. It's like, that's the thing that, like, that's the stigma. Once, like, even when I back in the day, like, I had a very negative look at drugs, very negative because like, I don't take any, right? So I was one of those people who were like, oh, well, I see why he's that big or whatever. He doesn't have to work that hard, right? But that's that stigma that you're going to have to deal with. People think that everything you've done physically isn't because you've worked at it, but it's because you've taken some drugs, and they do help people. It's not like they don't, but you will have that shadow over everything. Yeah,
being a Slim Jim like myself, dude, anytime I saw anybody, so obviously that guy's on steroids, like, that's just some of the mentality that, just inexperienced people have. But you're right, though. It's funny how we can easily discredit because of a positive test or whatever. But like being at a pro level, I mean, all you do is play games, right? Like, no, like, dude, that guy's his job's 24/7, right? Mm-hmm. And Austrian's not gonna make his job extremely easy. It's not going to even make a difference, in my opinion.
Another cool thing I think that he talked about, man, and we had this guy from OPEX Fitness on. Was his name Joe?
No.
From OPEX. Who's the guy from OPEX?
Fitzsimmons or Fitzgerald?
James Fitzgerald.
See?
James Fitzgerald. At least I was right on the J, right? But Lane was saying how he played all these different sports as a kid, and basketball was one of the things that prepared him well for being able to do what he does in the league because of the feet, right? I think that's a big thing, especially if you're young and you're playing sports. Playing different sports. Fitzgerald talked about that too. James Fitzgerald, like getting kids to do different things. And then there's that book that Precision Nutrition.
Come on, man.
Berardi. Yeah, John Berardi talked about that book Range, where it talks about all these crazy high-level pro athletes that did a lot of different things that got them ready for that sport. I think that might be a really cool thing for younger individuals to try to take advantage of. Do as many things as you can if you can.
Yeah, and you look at certain sports. I mean, if you're a young person and you want to be like a bodybuilder, it actually might make some sense to do like, something like soccer or beach volleyball or something. You look at those athletes, surfing, look at those athletes, all have small waist. They all don't accumulate body fat because the sport that they do has them moving around so much that obviously your nutrition is always a huge part of it. But what a great way to set yourself up for the rest of your life to kind of always be ahead. You look at Stan Efferding yourself. There's a few other examples in there as well. We've run into some people where they're like, oh yeah, had a whole previous life of playing soccer. And we're always like, huh, really? Pretty damn big for a soccer player. But, it's those different sports can make a huge difference. And people have talked about this for a long time. You don't want to specialize too early. If your son wants to play baseball, that's cool that they want to play baseball, but you should encourage them to try to get into some other stuff, because playing and lining up the ball to shoot a three-pointer in basketball and learning the discipline of making it through a football practice, all those things can help assist your kid becoming better at whatever single sport it is that they want to do later on. As they get older, they're going to need to switch over and specialize because you're going to need to spend more time doing it. Yeah,
a lot of high-level basketball players were high-level soccer players. Especially the ones that have the really good footwork. It all came from soccer. So it's funny how the soccer carries over to basketball, basketball carries over to football to WWE.
And you know what's funny? There's this Lomachenko. Do you guys know who Vasyl Lomachenko is? Or have you ever seen his highlights, the boxer?
Oh, okay. I'm like, that name sounds extremely familiar, but okay.
Okay, he's this Ukrainian boxer, and if you guys haven't, you guys got to check out those highlights after this episode. He literally dances around his opponents. He's one of the craziest boxers with footwork that I've literally ever seen. It's insane. It looks like art. But he was a dancer when he was younger. Like, his dad had him dance. And it's because of all the dancing he did that he legitimately is dancing around his opponents. He makes them look stupid, right? So it's funny how these different types of movement can just totally get you ready for something totally different that you'll be doing. It's awesome.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to some guests that we have coming up pretty soon. We have Ivor Cummings on. He's formerly an engineer, but he's been studying very, very heavily. He's been studying nutrition over the years, and he actually did an entire documentary. I'm going to need to watch it to check it out, but he did an entire documentary on heart disease, and he just really takes a deep dive. A lot of it's pretty thick. It's not easy stuff to get through because it's just complex. Nutrition is simple in the general terms, but as you get more specific, it becomes quite complicated. But he talks a lot about calcium and heart disease and all that kind of stuff. And in addition to that, more recently, he's been really heavily diving into COVID-19. And I think I think he's like one of the best people, in my opinion, to look into, and that could be because I share similar opinions, so that might be why I think that. But I just have found that his information, he's presenting facts, he's presenting numbers, and when you look at some of the stuff that he's posting and talking about, he's really giving us the straight information. And if you think about what we learned today and talking to our guests today, not to shrug off COVID-19 and not to say that it's not a thing. It's just that the way that it's impacting most of the people that are healthy, a lot of people are asymptomatic where they don't really notice much of anything. And a lot of people are like our guest today, Lane, who just felt like dog shit. He just did not feel well. There are obviously people getting sick from it. We know there's people dying from it, but it's great to continue to learn about it. Since I agree with our guest today, I don't really feel like there's much. I think you guys share a similar feeling as well. It doesn't feel like there's a whole lot we can do about it except for have some responsibility with, washing the hands and trying to keep our distance, and anywhere where you can't keep the distance, wear a mask. Other than that, it's really a guess, and I'm getting, I hear people all the time. They're like, oh, this guy's not a immunologist, or this guy's not a, he doesn't study infectious disease. But if you listen to the people that are studying infectious disease, at the moment, a lot of them don't seem very rational. I don't know what is going on. I don't know if it's a political movement. I don't know if they have to take certain stances because of who they are or what they do. But I haven't really seen any of those guys say anything that has been helpful, other than stay 6 feet apart, wear a mask, wash your hands, the things that we're already learning and knowing. So it's great to actually have somebody on that has contracted the virus that we know tested positive, then he got tested again and confirmed it, and so on. And so it's just, I think it's a great thing to continue to learn about.
Yeah, the lady that you had posted on Twitter was crazy. She said that the coronavirus was the worst virus in history. It's worse than the Spanish flu. Sweden is not a good example because their cases are getting worse. And it's like, hold on, like, where do you get that information from? And like, I don't even know who she was, what her title is. But if somebody's interviewing her on anything, but like, I don't even know if it was like a big publication or not, whatnot. But someone like me who has no idea about anything, I'll just say that, can see that and be like, oh no, I believe she is very much incorrect.
Worse than the Spanish flu.
Yeah, and we know that you can also manipulate numbers to kind of tell whatever story that you want. And we also know it's not a great idea to only get information just from one source, just from one place. So always do your homework. Always double check, always, check the resources the best you can, or, poke around. Are other people saying this? Other people agreeing with this? Like, what is the situation with this? But in terms of what is going on in Sweden, I mean, from the charts I've seen, and again, maybe I'm seeing stuff that's fake, they have single-digit death rate at the moment. And again, I know people are like, oh, it's only as big as Los Angeles County, but 2 million people sounds like a pretty decent sized population to base some stuff off of, at least. And they're dwindling down. Like they spiked, they went way up and then they cruised back down. I just hope that we find out enough information, we gain enough knowledge to where we can start to apply it to, what we're doing here. And I'm not proposing and saying that we do the same thing here. I've actually have kind of developed a little bit of a new mindset on what's going on. I actually think that after being here in New Jersey and seeing out like how much hanging out everyone does, and I was like, I think I kind of get it a little bit better now. So I think that this is the government's way to get us exposure to COVID-19, is through what they've been sharing with us, because they know that we're going to go into grocery stores. They know we're going to be close to each other. So I think they're just trying to because why else would they open anything back up? Why wouldn't everything be shut down? Why wouldn't we be under like extreme commanded quarantine? Like why? Otherwise, it really doesn't make any sense at all. Thinking that we can kind of halfway go about our business, but if we just don't get too close to each other and we wash our hands and we wear a mask, then we're not going to get it. So I actually think that, not that this is conspiracy theory or anything, I think that these people on the inside kind of, probably are like, hey, if we do this, people may still catch it, but we can gain some immunity to it by the community getting the virus, and while we are also looking for a vaccine. So maybe that's the thought process.
I like it. I like the conspiracy theory on the conspiracy theory. Many levels.
It doesn't even sound like a conspiracy. Like, that's what's happening. It's spreading. It's going to spread slower, but
right.
I mean, shoot, give us our gyms back.
I just don't think they would ever say that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I just don't think they would say, hey, here's the plan. We're hoping y'all get it. Hoping y'all, spread the virus around but just a little bit. Don't spread it around too much. And, we'll see where we're at in a little bit. But, man, I'm out here. Like I said, I'm talking to my aunts and my uncles and stuff like that. And they're just, they're teachers, and nobody has a clue on what direction any of this stuff's going to go in. So it'll be interesting to see what the hell happens with this football season.
Yeah. Wait, by the way, you said when you were out there, you saw how people are hanging out. Like, what? Are people not distancing much out there? Are you seeing large groups of people congregating? What do you mean?
People are still social distancing to some extent. But I mean, people are just hanging out on the beach, they're probably with their own family. So, you'll see some people still are spaced out maybe more than they normally would be. But in terms of my family, I mean, there's a few family members that, kind of fist bump or whatever, but for the most part, I don't have any precautions. And maybe that's not the right thing to do. I don't know. But most of the rest of the family doesn't care either. It's not that we don't care about the virus. It's just that we don't feel that we're in danger if we are to get it.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
That's where we at. But yeah, out on the beach and stuff, I mean, out here in New Jersey, it's similar to California. The restaurants are closed on the inside. But if they want to have some outdoor dining, they can do some of that. But out here, they're going to have to get it solved really, really quick because the weather's coming. There's going to be some crazy weather that's going to come, and they're not going to be able to do any outdoor dining or anything like that. So yeah, hopefully they get things turned around here. I don't know what they'll do exactly, but it'll be interesting to see.
Gotcha. Cool.
We've also got Ryan Holiday coming up on the podcast pretty soon. I don't know what the date is for that, but that's exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be around August 20th, I believe.
It's late August.
Yeah, I'm super pumped for that one.
He's had some great books.
Yep. And then we nabbed Mark Lobliner. He's going to actually come to the gym. He's going to be in person. And I think that'll be a lot of fun. He's always a little fiery, always controversial, but I enjoy his company, and I think we'll have a lot of fun with him.
I used to watch his videos years ago when I was watching Chris Jones stuff. Mark Lobliner's a character, man. Have you talked to him before or had long conversations with him in the past?
Yeah, he's a crazy bastard.
He really is. He really is. And I wonder, I don't know, is he as big as he used to be, or is he doing other stuff?
Yeah, he's still pretty big. Yeah, he's still, he doesn't weigh a lot because he's not, from what I remember, he's not real tall, but yeah, he's thick and he's jacked. He looks good.
There's only one thing I remember right now thinking of him, and it's of him yelling, "It's colostrum. It's colostrum." But that'll be fun. That's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Well, I'll be heading on back to California tomorrow. and I'll probably be in the gym on Sunday. And I'll see you guys soon.
Cool, man.
Sickety sick.
Awesome.
Take us on out of here, Andrew.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, for checking out today's episode. Sincerely appreciate that. Thanks for hanging out with us, even though we're all in different parts of the planet, just like you guys. Please make sure you're following the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on Twitter. We're on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z. Nsima, where are you at? What's wrong with your
At Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube. At Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. More Smooth Panther videos coming out pretty soon, guys, this week. All right, Mark.
That Smooth Panther.
Yes.
I'm at Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch y'all later.